Hi, this is Kartikeya Bhatia from What the Article. Please press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to never miss an update. Give us a thumbs up if you like our video. Our guest for today is Dr. Gitanjali Chopra, founder of Wishes and Blessings. Let's start the podcast with her. Hi, Gitanjali, how are you doing?
Hey Karthik, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. So, my first question to you is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you thought of setting up Wishes and Blessings?
A little about myself is a little difficult to do because I often am lost for words when people ask me to talk about myself per se because
Uh-huh.
honestly I don't know where to start and where to stop.
Okay.
Not to sound pompous, but
Yeah.
I think I'm best defined as me. Um, I'm born into a big, nice, happy, large Punjabi family. So I'm Punjabi by heart and
Okay.
Punjabi by nature.
Okay.
And I am basically a Delhi girl. I did my schooling, my college, my doctorate, everything from Delhi
Uh-huh.
with regular inputs of, studying abroad, traveling, and the
Sure.
likes.
Sure.
So in the very early phase of my life, I started my career as a journalist.
Okay.
I then moved on to being a teacher. I went on to academics. I was a
Uh-huh.
fellow at the Center for Policy Research.
Oh.
And this was my identity till the time I
Uh-huh.
set up what I now do, which is Wishes and Blessings.
Yeah.
Wishes and Blessings was set up in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And since 2014, I am better known as the face behind Wishes and Blessings.
Uh-huh. Amazing. Amazing. Uh, what are all the programs that Wishing and Blessings run? If you can share that with us.
So, Wishes and Blessings is essentially a platform for connecting people who need help with
Mm-hmm.
those who can help.
Mm-hmm.
In more technical language, connecting donors with beneficiaries.
Huh.
The idea behind Wishes and Blessings is very, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on a philosophy that I believe in that,
Mm-hmm.
the world is made up of two kinds of people.
Okay.
The first sort of people who need help.
Mm-hmm.
They could
True.
be, there could be
Yeah.
any kind of help. These are
True.
people with unfulfilled wishes. And on the other side, you have people who can help. They're more
True.
blessed people who can
Yes.
help others fulfill their wishes.
Yes.
And what they essentially get in return are blessings. Hence the name Wishes and Blessings.
That's amazing.
So, having said that, yeah, that's the philosophy behind Wishes and Blessings.
Uh-huh.
And with this very simple concept that you want to help people who need help,
Mm-hmm.
and by connecting them with people who can help, you can't really restrict yourself to any a particular kind of cause or people. So as
Sure.
a result, we work across barriers of
Mm-hmm.
caste, age, gender, community, now states.
Uh-huh.
And I often say that my youngest beneficiary is only about 8 weeks old because, we've kind of aided his delivery process.
Sure.
And the oldest beneficiary is about 88 living
Oh.
in my old age home. So,
Sure.
that is the spectrum of people that we cater
Uh-huh.
to.
Uh-huh.
And having given you the broad spectrum, the age group that we cater to,
Uh-huh.
we do a bit of everything,
Yeah.
right from food to nutrition to health issues to education to elderly care to
Sure.
SOS relief. We
Sure.
work around 9 parameters
Okay.
and yeah, a little bit of everything, which
Uh,
in fact, a
uh-huh.
lot of people might think that, we
Uh-huh.
are, and I've often been told that in the past, that it seems that you're a jack of all trades and master of none.
Okay.
And I beg
Okay.
to differ. And my answer has always been that, well, we try to master what we do. But yes, we're still learners. So
Yeah.
that's who we are.
Well, that's a nice way to put it, right? So the next question is, what sets Wishes and Blessings apart from other NGOs out there?
I think, Karthike, you will be in a better position to answer that question since you have been
Yeah.
involved with us for a very long time.
Yes. Yes.
But as a founder, I
Mhm.
think the principles that I set the organization up on, the pillars of the organization is what really makes us stand apart.
Sure.
We are 500% accountable and transparent.
Yeah.
I know most NGOs say the same thing, but in addition to just saying it, we practice it.
True.
We are what we are, and there are no shades of gray when it comes to wishes and blessings. And I think the biggest thing which makes us stand out is the
Mhm.
personal involvement of each and every member of the team. be it an admin person who's actually looking after do a day-to-day administration, going on to the field and actually doing work, or be it the president and the founder actually going and, organizing drives on the ground myself. So, we give it a 500%. We do not treat our organization as a corporate organization. Whenever I recruit people, I always tell them, welcome to the Wishes and Blessings family. So whoever is associated with us becomes a family member. So, the bonding is such that you feel connected.
True.
So the connection, I think, is our biggest USP. And perhaps you could add more to that.
No, I truly believe, I've learned that thing from you about the family culture, because we also promote the same thing. And I've had a great journey with Wishes and Blessings from the first day when I met you. So what are the future projects that Wishes and Blessings plans to start? If you can just share that with us.
Our future projects come in every single day. Every time there's a brainstorming session, something new comes up. Just now, COVID gave us an opportunity we thought never existed, because, overnight, and I believe that is the silver lining to COVID. Overnight, Wishes and Blessings expanded from a Delhi NCR organization to 7 states across India. So, we just grew leaps and bounds, right? From Delhi, we spread, to Assam, to West Bengal, Jharkhand, Tamil Nadu, Uttarakhand, UP, and lots and lots of opportunities to actually help out people. And I think we did a pretty decent job there. And, having tasted success in that sense, we now want to branch out more, because we've already established our ground networks over there, and we know the need of the people. We know how to execute relief. So I think, yes, expansion pan-India is the next step.
Awesome. And congratulations for that as well, right? So the next thing is, what are the challenges you faced while you were setting up Wishes and Blessings? If you could share with us.
I think while setting up, it's the same sort of challenges that most NGOs face, and that is the paperwork. Some of the NGOs that have preceded us haven't done a very good job and have kind of given the sector a pretty bad name. So, skepticism in terms of anybody who comes across an NGO is the first barrier. Anytime, you say you want to set up an NGO, or you are setting up an NGO, you always get that little raised eyebrow. Oh, is that a money-making forum? And I can tell you from the past 6 years, it's not. At least for us, it's never been. And I can vouch for the fact that till the time I'm around, it's not going to be that way. But yes, the challenge has, number one, been the paperwork. The paperwork for actually setting up an organization, getting all your licenses, getting all, your registrations, your certificates. That is one huge challenge. It's not easy. I remember when I was getting, Wishes and Blessings registered, I used to go to the offices at like 8:30 in the morning. The office was supposed to open at 9 just to break the lines, and the commissioners would not show up before 11:30, 12. So it was such a frustrating place to be in. And the thought was that, here I am trying to make a change around me, trying to do something for the society. And I'm just not being given the opportunity, even though I want to. So, the setting up hassle was there, but thankfully we were able to sail through. I think once we set up, the biggest challenge, more than paperwork, more than money, more than anything else in this sector, is something which I myself have started to define as a trust deficit. It's often known that people distrust or, don't have enough trust in NGOs or their founders or organizations. Because, if you want to give your money, you want to donate your money, you want to part away, you need to have complete trust. So it's pretty understood that, people will question you, they'll ask you a zillion things before they actually part with that 100 rupees or 1,000 rupees or whatever be the amount. But the surprising part that I kind of, that I experienced, and I was very, very surprised, was a trust deficit on the part of the beneficiaries. People today do not want to be helped. When you reach out to somebody to help, their first question is, why are you helping me? So with the very first organization that I worked with, a school for visually impaired children. That's how Wishes and Blessings started.
Okay.
For the longest time, the principal, she refused to acknowledge my presence. This was a lady in her late 60s,
Okay.
and every time I would go there and I would wish her, and she would just look through me.
Sure.
And like she would, if looks could kill, I would have really been gone a long time ago, thanks to that lady. No names taken.
Yeah.
But she was just so, I don't even know the word. She was just so anti me.
Okay.
So one day I gathered all my guts and I went up to her and I told her, "Ma'am, problem kya hai? What is the problem?" So
True.
she says, "No, there's no problem." I said, I wish you. I say namaste to you every single time and you don't even wish back. So she tells me that, well, you're much younger. So, it's your duty to wish. So she was, she was giving me these answers, and anybody else in my place would have just walked out. But, since I really wanted to do something, so I stuck around and I asked her, there is an issue. So please tell me the issue.
Sure.
And she came up and she said, well, the issue is I haven't been able to figure out why are you helping us? What is it that you want?
Yeah.
So I said, I don't want anything from you. I like the fact that you're running a school for visually impaired children. I love these children. I love spending time with these children. I've played Holi with these children and I just want to give them more happiness. So she says, yes, I understand, but what are you going to get in return? And I was like, I don't want anything. And it really surprised me because her next part was, she says, do you want a statue to be put here in this school? So I said, ma'am, I'm still living. Why would I want to put a statue of myself?
True.
She's like, long story short, it took a lot of convincing. And then she finally came out, out of the horse's mouth. And she said that, a few months ago, somebody had actually helped her organization secure a grant for 5 lakh rupees, an award.
Okay.
So for the progress of the school. So after getting the 5 lakh rupees, the person who had actually aided, this aid came back to the school and said, I need 2.5 lakhs out of it. That is my commission. So, people think that if you're really willing to help people, there is a motive behind it.
Yes.
And that is what I call the trust deficit. Actually telling beneficiaries that we want to help them, just because we want to help them and there is no other reason behind it is a huge task. I mean, another example, just to give you, when I set up my old age home, the first wing was only for women.
Yeah.
So, when we were reaching out to people who need help, we came across this group of women. It was like a group, for distressed women. And we went and we gave a presentation there that, come stay with us, stay at our old age home. These are the facilities. So this one lady pipes up that, why are you only looking at women? औरतों से ऐसा क्या कराओगे कि सिर्फ औरतें ही चाहिए आपको old age home? I was flabbergasted that how can somebody even think like that? Here I am trying to set up an old age home, give all facilities, boarding, lodging, entertainment, health, medicine, and everything free of cost. And you're getting up and telling me that, are you trying to do something with just women? So, that is the trust deficit. And in today's day, I think the biggest challenge is finance, because I think money is a challenge everywhere thanks to COVID and the COVID economy going on. So people, obviously money is restricted, the flow is restricted, liquidity is restricted. So people are spending, saving more, their sources of income are less. So, the whole concept of donations don't come in. So I think these are the challenges that we collectively face.
But I think after all these challenges, you're doing an amazing job. So keep at it, right? So,
thank you.
So my next question is that, can you share with us how the lockdown has affected you? You just touched on it briefly. If you can just share with us.
So the lockdown, I mean, we were as surprised as anybody else. so before the lockdown itself, in fact, we had started, implementing a rooster system wherein half the force was coming in. We were working alternative days, and we were trying to maintain social distancing.
Sure.
That was in the office and in the field also. In fact, 3 weeks before the lockdown, we had shut our schools, our street to school centers, because obviously with street children, it's very, very difficult to practice social distancing. And it was quite a sad scenario at that point of time, still is. So we did not expect a lockdown, like most of us did not. But I think the team initially was in a bit of a jolt, but I think all of us collectively were able to do much more than what we had done till now.
Okay.
So I still remember it was like the first day when the lockdown was announced, and the first question to our heads, well, what about the daily wagers? We were working with daily wagers in Rain Baseras, giving them food, every single day since 2015. In fact, we had celebrated our 10th lakh meal in December 2019. So we did have experience of, working with these people, and having dealt with them, we realized that, these are going to be people who are going to be worst hit. Yes. So it was almost overnight, because we already had experience in, through our daily meals program.
Yes.
And before the 25th of March, we were feeding 600 people daily. Oh. But by the end of March, this number had grown up to 3,000. Wow. And by the 10th of April, it had gone to 15,000 people a day, which is 45,000 meals a day. That's what we were really looking into. And it was really amazing, because I never thought we would be able to do so much, from 600 to 15,000 was like humongous.
Yes.
And in addition to just Delhi, we started expanding. We started getting frantic calls from all over India, and we said, okay, we must do something. And I think it was just, it was almost magical the way things worked. Yeah. For example, our biggest operation even today is in Bengal. Okay. And how we started in Bengal is that I got a call from a priest. Okay. We got an Instagram request, and I'm from a convent school, from Convent of Jesus and Mary. So that whole connection, and the thing was that you're from a convent, and we had this priesthood in this group of priests in Bengal, and Asansol, and we need help. And I think that gave a lot of credibility, the kind, the correspondence we had, and we said, okay, let's go ahead and help you. Yeah. And before we knew it, from 100 to 500 to 1,000, we actually looked after 5,000 families in Bengal. Wow. That was our biggest operation. Wow. 5,000 families for 2.5 months. So that's almost in an average 5 to 6 people per family. Yeah. So they were given weekly ration and hygiene kits. Yeah. And after seeing the Bengal example, we got more and more calls, and we just spread. It was like wildfire. Yeah. And luckily, donations started coming in. A lot of people stepped forward, people we hadn't heard of, people who didn't know us. Yeah. They had just seen our work on social media. They had heard about us from friends or family. And everybody just wanted to join hands. Okay. So I think COVID, in that sense, a lot of supporters, wishes and blessings have, said that it was under pressure that the team was able, to perform its very best. But this is not to say that, it's just been a joyride. It's not. It's been a very, very, very difficult situation. We've had team members losing motivation. So we started having, weekly Zoom calls away from work. It would be about people. It would be about, getting to know each other sessions, more lively sessions. And then actually, I had a little bigger role to play, because I had to continuously motivate the team.
Absolutely.
A lot of people said, work from home, no structure. But for us, work from home was work 24 hours. Yeah. Because somebody or the other was always on the job. If there was a new call that came in, new call for help, the graphics team could be told at any point of time, please get this done. We would ask, the social media people, the digital marketing people to be on the go all the time. So, everybody was working, and there was no sense of timing. Like, there were no holidays, there was no Sunday. I still remember, right after the lockdown, 2 weeks into it, it was a Saturday. We were talking on Friday, and one of my colleagues said, oh, but isn't tomorrow a holiday?
Yeah.
And I was like, holiday for what? And she's like, oh, second Saturday. I said, I'm sorry, but now there are no Saturdays. But luckily, like once, things became more streamlined, we did decide to work all Saturdays, and the team has been extremely supportive. But yeah, Sundays we try not to work, though, invariably we end up working. So it's been a good, rewarding journey, but I've promised my team as soon as things are normal, we're going for a retreat and we're taking some time off.
Yeah, you deserve it. You've done so much, so you guys need to take a short break, rejuvenate, and then come back and do
Yes,
much more.
that's on the cards for sure.
Yeah. So, how has the journey been for you so far? And if you can share some of your achievement with our viewers.
I think in one word, if I was to describe my journey, it's a roller coaster. There continuous ups and downs every single day. Sure. I wouldn't even say that the roller coaster is every week or every month or every year. The roller coaster is every single day. Sure. So you receive this joyous piece of news, and then all of a sudden things fall apart. Sure. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I don't really like talking about achievements. I mean, for some people, achievements might be awards. Sure. For others, it might be milestones. I think the biggest achievement, the way I look at it, is that, the fact that because of wishes and blessings, a lot of people have turned their tears into smiles. Sure. That is our achievement. Because of wishes and blessings, a lot of people get food to eat. That is the achievement. So I think the power and the capability to spread happiness, and moreover convert, transform tears into smiles has been our biggest achievement.
That is amazing. My last question to you would be, what advice would you give to someone who wants to come in and work with you, first of all? And secondly, if they want to start their own NGO? If you could just shed some light on that.
I think anybody who wants to get a foray into the social sector, wants to work for, wants to do social work, needs to be very sure that, this is what they want to do. So let me just put it this way, that, a lot of people just want to do it for the fame. There's a lot of fame here because, every time you go somewhere, people are like, oh, wow, you left this, you're doing this. But it's not just fame, it's a lot of hard work. So a lot of people do not understand that. You need to be dedicated enough. It's very easy to say, oh, I want to work with street children, but once you go there and you see that their noses are flowing and they're dirty and their hands are dirty, you can't be doing chi over there.
True.
So we've had people, oh, I want to do, but when they have to go there and it's hot and sweaty, they don't want to get out of their cars, which because the cars have AC and outside there's no AC. Yeah. So you need to get a realistic understanding of the field, and I think the best way to do so is to intern. Intern with different organizations and see if you're really made for it. And once if you have decided that this is really what you want to do, setting up an NGO is not easy. It is a lot of hard work. So my advice would be, please work in the field for some time, get a flavor, and then decide. And be sure to know that it's not an easy journey. Be sure to know that there is not enough money. I mean, personally for myself, I left a very lucrative job, a career to come into this field. I literally earn peanuts. And a lot of people, in fact, ask me, don't you miss, a lot of things that you had earlier? And, in my personal case, I think I've been very blessed to have a family who supports me, a support system which takes care of me in addition to whatever else I do care, whatever I get. But for a lot of people, the money part of it is a huge constraint. So, if you really feel that, if you're going to be in this field and you're going to earn those mega bucks, this is not the field for you. But we do not have a lot of output in terms of money, right? But what we get is a lot of happiness, is a lot of satisfaction. So you basically need to understand yourself in terms of what is it that you want from life. You know, do you want to be, and how is it that you actually get happiness? Do you get happiness by receiving a big fat salary check? Do you get happiness by seeing other people happy? You know, so what is it that really drives you? Once you answer this first question, the second question is go do an internship. You know, and don't just do like a 1 or a 2 week internship. Do an intensive internship, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Try to get a flavor of the field and then apply for a job. And once you've gained enough experience, that's when you can actually, you know, go about doing what you really want to do.
No, I agree with what you said. And thank you so much, Dr. Gitanjali Chopra, for taking out your valuable time and giving us such amazing insights. A big thank you to all our viewers for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss an update from us. Look forward to seeing you on another episode of What the Article. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.